Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen Dowler, Director of Community Health for Dignity Health, and I am your moderator for this morning. And welcome if this is your first time to the Nonprofit Town Hall, and welcome again if you've been here at previous Town Hall meetings. These are specifically for the nonprofits to have a forum for discussion, resourcing, and gaining information, particularly as we move through this difficult time during the COVID crisis. So as a reminder, at the very beginning, we did a survey that helped us to understand what were key concerns and needs, and we used the town halls to address those. I would like to again thank the town of Gilbert, the chambers of both Gilbert and Mesa who helped with the formatting and the work that goes into having these town halls, as well as specifically Sarah and Melanie, who really do a great job before, during, and after each of the nonprofit town halls. And I would also like to congratulate Sarah, who more recently took on a new role as president of Gilbert Chamber of Commerce. We really can't ask for a better person to be in this role, Sarah. Replacing those big shoes of Kathy Tilkey, but we know that you will do an exceptional job. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You are welcome. So virtual applause, I suppose. So the purpose of this call again is really to address the needs that the nonprofits have through this time. And we share topics based off of the survey responses, and what we gain throughout each of the calls as well brings up new areas of concern and challenges, and so we use those as formats for future calls. For today's purpose, we're going to be talking about nonprofit fundraising and gaining some information learned from those who have already completed events and or have one in the books ready to go. And then we'll also be sharing events and planning and ideas throughout the session. I'd like to talk a little bit about the format we're going to do today. We usually have a similar format in which we go through the speakers. As a reminder, there's a chat format. If this is your first time, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says chat. You also see where it says participants, and you can see who all is on the call. You see a Q&A where you can ask a question. But through the chat is really where you can enter your questions and comments. And Sarah's going to be monitoring those throughout the call today so that she'll capture those. At the end of each presentation, we will then move forward to one or two questions or comments before we move on to the next speaker. And then at the very end, we'll open up again for more questions and comments and dialogue. So we want you to be assured that your questions will be answered. If for some reason we don't get to your question, or you have one after the fact, after we close the call, just shoot an email over to us and we will make sure that we answer your question for you. So thank you again for your time. I want to go ahead now and introduce Ellen Abrams, who is the Regional Philanthropy Director for Mercy Housing Page Commons, to discuss her experiences around virtual event and fundraising and her lessons learned as well, which I think will be very helpful. So Ellen, are you ready?
I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here today to talk about, oh, I have to change my screen up here. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry about that. That's one of the lessons that I have. One of our lessons learned is about technology and getting used to all of this. But yes, again, I'm Ellen Abrams from Mercy Housing. Happy to be with you today. I am calling in from Denver, Colorado. That's where our corporate office is located. And I am happy to talk about our recent experiences and the lessons that we've learned in regard to virtual fundraising. I guess I would say first that times have really changed, and they have changed fast. I mean, right off the bat, 4 months ago, I would have either arranged to fly out to Arizona to be with you in person today, or I might not have joined at all because of scheduling conflicts and budget reasons. But thanks to this new virtual reality that we're living in, it's easy to be here today. And that just goes to show, you know, a quick example of how we have to adopt and take advantage of this new normal. So I am grateful for that. If any of you are not familiar with Mercy Housing, I wanted to give you a brief overview. We're the largest nonprofit for affordable housing in the United States. We're in 20 states, have 342 communities, and serve close to 45,000 people. And that includes families, seniors, veterans, and people with special needs. Mercy Housing Southwest has 13 affordable housing communities in Arizona, and we serve 650 people approximately in that area. 9 communities serve seniors, and 4 communities serve people with special needs. And like Kathleen said, we have one of my personal favorite properties right in Gilbert called Page Commons, which is a senior community has 100 apartments there. So getting to our fundraising virtually, like everybody else, we've had to pivot really quickly in this new era of COVID-19. And I thought the best way to tell you about our experiences would be to talk about 2 different fundraisers, one that already took place and one that we have coming up. But I would say for both and for all of the other events that we have going on in our Mountain Plains region, I think the most important thing is to think about how and if you can maintain the integrity of the event and the fundraiser virtually, and whether it's worthwhile to do so, whether it's viable. And if not, maybe you should not do it for the time being. And if you can, how to make it worthwhile. So we had an event scheduled in Denver, actually, a local fundraiser, an in-person event called Homemaker. It was an art event hosted in downtown Denver at a really fun area, a catered event with a live, obviously, program. We had sponsors. We had a venue filled with art from local artisans, and the sale of that art was to benefit Mercy Housing Resident Services. So this was, like I said, in April, and because of COVID, we needed to reschedule the event and then decide whether or not we wanted to make it a virtual event. And we decided to give it a go. This was our first opportunity to get our feet wet in the virtual world, and we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew. So we changed it from this one-night event to a 3-day online event that was not live at all. Instead of it being a local Denver event, we changed that to reach out to our entire Mountain Plains region, because it didn't matter anymore that you didn't have to be in Denver to attend. So we decided to capitalize on that. And because we changed from a live platform with guest speakers, we converted to a new platform for us, a very new experience, with a software called GiveSmart. And through GiveSmart, we were able to still showcase the art, still hold a small auction, and we were able to text and email the attendees of the event over the course of the 3 days. But again, this was not a live program. And in regard to sponsorships, luckily, that did not change either. So we had our sponsors all lined up and on board for the in-person event. And when we changed it to a virtual event, we obviously reached out to everybody. And luckily, they still decided to support Mercy Housing, regardless of whether the event was in-person or virtual. So that was one example of a smaller event that we switched up to meet our needs and to still raise the money that we had planned to raise. Now, coming up in August, we have our signature fundraising breakfast. This one is in the Midwest. We are having one coming up in the Southwest, which you'll all hopefully be hearing about. That's not until November, but this one's in August. It's typically a 1-hour in-person fundraising breakfast. We normally have it in Omaha, which is our largest city in our Midwest region. and I'm sure many of you have been to events like this where you come to a hotel or some venue and you have the opportunity to network for about 15 minutes and then you're escorted in and you're sitting at your table of 10 and you can chat with the people sitting next to you, and then after the event you have the opportunity to network. We typically schedule a live program that includes guest speakers, a resident speaker, award recipients, and of course, an in-person ask. So what we're doing now in this new virtual world is, instead of it being that 1 hour breakfast, we are doing a 4-day event and then a 45-minute live program. Instead of just inviting our Omaha supporters, we are inviting everybody in the Midwest region, so a lot more people. For this event, we are using the Zoom platform, which I know we're on Zoom now, we're all used to Zoom calls, but from the internal perspective, that's a very new experience, holding a large event like that over Zoom. We've had to switch up our sponsorship benefits. So no longer our sponsors, they don't care anymore. It's not applicable that they receive, 2 free tables at an event, because there are no tables at a virtual event. So we had to rethink what would attract someone to sponsor the event and what could we give back to them. And then last but not least, at our fundraisers, we often have little party favors that we put at everybody's seats, whether it's a little candle or flowers. In this new event, we are sending out party favors to everybody that registered for the event. So again, another way of changing from in-person to virtual. So that's quickly these 2 events, one past, one coming up. And the lessons that we've learned are that you really need to think creatively. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that, but how to best attract your supporters. We've learned that you have a much greater potential to reach more people because you're not stuck in a particular city. You're not stuck in a particular time or place. We've learned that the flexibility of extending the event over several days seems to really work well for people. They like to view things at their own time, whether it's a Saturday morning or at Thursday night. So we have found that giving them that opportunity has been beneficial for us. We've also learned about technology and that you need to take the time to schedule dry runs, to make sure you have backups, to feel comfortable if an error should happen. I think everyone's pretty understanding, but the lesson that we've learned is to be as prepared as you could possibly be. We've also learned that the ability to record whatever it is you're doing virtually can be helpful to you as well, that you can share the program to people who were not able to attend. You could share it on your social media. You could share it to your sponsors to thank them. You can have it live on your website, on your landing page, that it becomes a tool to use. And then we've also learned, particularly through this platform, GiveSmart, that you can communicate to people during the event. So like I was saying earlier, we could send a text to all of the people who registered saying, oh, you can cozy up on your couch, stay in your pajamas and check out the art from our homemaker event and support Mercy Housing. So we've been really liking that opportunity of having more engagement with the people who are supporting us. And the last thing that we've learned is that our sponsors are still happy to sponsor Mercy Housing through this virtual world. And that's been really nice to see. If they're going to sponsor you, it doesn't seem to matter whether it's an in-person event or a live event, in-person or virtual. So I To wrap up, I think there's a lot more to learn and there are a lot more experiences to be had. I look forward to our Live in Hope in Southwest to share with you ways in which we've changed things up in the learning that has already taken place.
Yeah.
And I guess that is all I would share at this time. Hope I didn't talk too quickly, and feel free to contact me, like Kathleen said, at any point offline. Happy to discuss further.
Thank you so much, Ellen. That was extremely informative and helpful. I appreciate that. There was certainly some good findings from what you had discussed. I really appreciated your mentioning of the importance of maintaining your integrity, and I think looking at the capacity to be able to do whatever you want to do, and kind of doing research on understanding what that looks like as well. And also that you mentioned, you know, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. So making sure, again, you look at that up front and understanding what it takes, whether it be a 1 day, a 3 day, or a 4 day, and understanding everything that goes into that. And I appreciate you mentioned several times our sponsors, not forgetting about our sponsors, how to connect with them. They're going to, in most cases, they're going to support us no matter what, but making sure we recognize them and reach out to them effectively was really great. And I also like that you mentioned, you know, the fact that while there's the downsides of virtual, there's the plus sides to it. You mentioned a multi-state reach versus just the one location where you were at. And so in some cases you end up with a benefit you don't normally expect. And when it came to lessons learned, I think you really bring up a great point in regards to technology. For some people, they love technology. It's not that new to them, but still there's new components to it. And for others of us, it's a lot of it is new. And so learning how everything works and understanding what a merchant account is, and having the right vendor for your event as well. And so all the technology is important. And then of course, that ongoing ability to communicate before, during, and after an event for your larger stakeholders is great. And so I appreciate your time and your effort that you gave us today with some terrific ideas. Now I would like to introduce another Ellen Lord, the Donor Relations and Program Director for Arizona Foundation for Women, and Megan Adams, the Operations Communications Coordinator for Arizona Foundation for Women, to discuss their recent event experience with the virtual event process, lessons learned, and also more about the social media aspect. And I had the opportunity to participate in this particular event and was so impressed with how they ran it, communication before the event and during and after, that I wanted them to come today and share some of what they did as well. So are you ready, Ellen and Megan?
We're ready.
Awesome, you're on.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Ellen Lord, and I'm the Donor Relations and Program Director for Arizona Foundation for Women. We are an organization that envisions an Arizona where all women have safe, healthy, and economically independent lives. It's not very often that I get to present with another Ellen, so it's a pleasure. She covered a lot of points that we similarly faced. Every year, our largest fundraising event and our signature event is called the Annual Awards Luncheon, and it is our largest fundraising event. We would have had it for the 23rd year this year. We were one of those lucky organizations where our event, if you can see the date, March 16th, that was kind of the beginning of everybody starting to go home, work from home, companies sending everybody home. So the week before, the Monday before, we were fine. Everybody was still coming. There was no problem. And then starting on the Wednesday before, a lot of our corporate sponsors had emailed or called us and said, so sorry, we have just put a policy into place where we cannot send anybody to a large event. This event, we had about 750 people coming that day. A lot of companies still said, yeah, we're still planning on coming, but by Friday, almost everybody had told us that they were unable to attend. I had 25 volunteers coming, and every single one of them had to drop out, which is very understandable. So what was our next step? On Friday, March 13th, we had to get with the hotel, the resort, and find out what were our options, what we could do. And the resort kind of told us that we would be, they were in work mode still, in contract mode, and were kind of letting us know that if we didn't want to lose our big deposits, we would have to reschedule. And they originally told us we needed to reschedule in June, which on March 13th sounded doable until you really started watching the news that weekend and realized that June was a little too soon. So then they pushed it to August, and then a lot of their own staff was furloughed. So it was really difficult to communicate with them, but we couldn't make the decision to go virtual, my point is, until we found out if we were going to get our deposits back from the hotel. And eventually, while we were waiting for that decision, we decided to have a task force put together. Our board of directors formed a task force committee, and they looked into all options. Everybody was assigned tasks. And one of our board members worked with a company called On24, which is an excellent platform to host events. They're used to doing more conferences, so I think we were one of their first nonprofit events. We selected them because we really wanted, if we were going to invest the money in this, we really wanted the best bang for our buck. And what turned out is the analytics that we could get from people that were registering and watching the event were very valuable to us. We did get word from the hotel that yes, they were sending our deposit back because they couldn't reschedule the event with us anyway. It's very typical what's going on now. A lot of the events that rescheduled this summer are now canceling. And I don't think it's clear to us that if your event was postponed till the fall, if that's even going to happen at this point. So we did make the decision to go virtual. And we're very pleased with what happened with this event. So yeah, next slide, please, Megan. Perfect. So the Ellen kind of covered already some of the lessons learned. I decided I would tell you a few pros and cons. What we were happy about was that a lot of what we could do live in a room, we could do virtually. Some parts were taped, some parts were live. Our sponsors and supporters, because we were really just about to have the event, they were so supportive and very appreciative of us moving forward with the event and fulfilling our agreements with them. Every chance we could, we had their logos on the screen. We sent it via email when we could. We still put our program booklet that you would normally get at your table. We made that virtual and sent it out to everybody who was attending. I think the sponsors and a lot of our table hosts were excited because now they could invite as many people as they want to their virtual table. And we saw a lot of that happening, where instead of a table of 10, you could have as many people as you wanted. Like Ellen said, you could attract people who normally couldn't attend the event. We decided to make this a free event. We didn't think it was the right time to charge for it, which I think was in our favor. So we had a lot of people that couldn't afford to come and pay for a ticket, but they were able to watch live on June 11th, which was the date that we selected. And then I have family all over the country. They were able to see the event, whereas they normally wouldn't if they couldn't come to Phoenix. We did have the ability to raise money via donations and a raffle. I think a lot of people were skeptical, but we did okay. The raffle alone raised almost $20,000. So we were very pleased with that. And while a virtual event is not as labor intensive as a live event, meaning Megan and I were joking how we on June 11th could be in jeans and some sneakers instead of dresses and heels, there still is a lot of work. There was a lot of prep work involved, maybe more so than a live event. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but it wasn't as labor intensive, having to lug everything to the resort, etc. Some of the cons, of course, I think people miss the human connection and excitement that's generated in the ballroom. We have a group of women who come to this event every year. We were going to be celebrating our organization's 25th anniversary and honoring our founder. And to do that virtually was probably not what we really had hoped for her. So we are planning on a future event to honor her in some way, shape, or form when we can.
Mhm.
But I do think some people miss getting dressed up and coming. I do think the raffle, if we had an amazing raffle this year, and while we were so pleased that we could do it virtually, I think we would have done a lot better at a live event. We probably would have doubled the amount of money that we took in raffle tickets. We have an event committee that worked so hard for 9 months. And of course, they were very disappointed to not have a live event, but they totally understand. As a matter of fact, we always have a live celebration event with the Angels, and we're finding out that we're scheduling a virtual happy hour to celebrate. And while the virtual event did not raise as much money as a live event, it was important for us to move forward and have something, because at this stage, I don't believe that we would be able to have something this fall. We were going to be able to have something this fall. So we're moving forward, and we're planning to still schedule the event live in April next year. But I think depending on what happens in the world, we will be prepared to go virtual too. So if you have an event planned this year, I would definitely, and you want to do it live and you're just not sure, I do think going virtual is a good option, because everybody understands and gets it. So there are pros and cons to this. I'm going to kick it to Megan now, just so she can talk to you about how we marketed the event moving in this direction.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. And let me see. I move. Okay, so these were some of the things we learned as we were planning to announce the event, going through the event, dealing with the technology. I added some of that down there as well. I think the biggest thing that we learned was definitely rely mostly on video content. We got a lot of engagement out of that, especially now there's just so much text and news and content in our feeds. So the video really helps break that up and engages really well on social media. We did everything from, we had our auctioneer record just a 5-minute basic video. This is what to expect at a virtual event. If this is your first event, here's what to look for. Here's how to prepare. Have your readers next to you. Have your cell phone ready if you want to make a donation. All those little tips I think were really helpful. Any sort of even just short promotional video, even if it's just text on a screen, still if it's motion moving in video format, that's really going to work well. And also consider going live if you want to do that for your, hey, we're having an event. This is what's going on. This is what to expect. Live works very well right now because it pretty much sends out a notification to each person that follows or likes you. And we went live for our raffle ticket pooling, and it was very, very successful. We got a lot of good feedback on that. People really enjoyed it and thought it was a unique way to engage with the audience. I'd also say definitely invest in social media post boosting. A little bit gets you a long way, a little bit of money. I think we only spent like $50 or so. And we got probably 100 or so people to register and attend the event from social media. And those were people who didn't really know us before and maybe made a donation at the event. So that was definitely worth it. We also consider utilizing unconventional social media websites such as Nextdoor. One of our board members actually posted about the event on Nextdoor because we are a community nonprofit. So it was in the interest of her neighbors, and we thought that was a different avenue that typically we wouldn't think to advertise through, but we thought that was a fun little something different. Another thing that we found worked very well was creating an FAQ graphic to share on social media and with event registrants. The little things such as what browser is going to work best while you're on there. Will it work on your phone? Will it not work on your phone? Just so people have those laid out ahead of time so you're not having to field questions during the event or the hour before the event. because that's really going to take up a lot of time. So anything that you can think of to do to make it seamless and easy for your attendees. Another big thing we found was to cover all your bases with time zones. Being in Arizona, that can get very tricky for us. And especially with the On24 platform we were using, it automatically said that we were Mountain Standard Time, which was not technically correct. So we learned very fast to just spell out Eastern Time, Pacific Time, Central, Mountain Time. This is your time based on where you are. And once we started adding that to all of our communications around the event, we found we got a lot less questions about it. And then if it's applicable for your event, definitely advertise the word free, because people are still uncertain with jobs, not wanting to spend money. So free will definitely get the attention that you want. If it's not free, then focus on the togetherness, community aspect of the event, and those intangible things that you're providing, providing a networking experience or something like that, what your event brings. And then for our general virtual event management tips, I'm going to follow up with Ellen Abrams' point, have backup plans, have everything, if something's going to go wrong, it might go wrong. For us, I had been working on the computer for 2 weeks with no problems. 5 p.m., event starts at 5:15, internet goes out on the computer. Gone. Had no idea what happened. So that's my biggest recommendation. Make sure you're hardwired in to the internet, and then also have a backup, like a mobile phone hotspot ready to go, because we actually got an email that there was a Cox outage in the area. So you never know, that's something out of your control. There's really no way to plan for that. So making sure you have a different internet source backup, I think, is very helpful. And then just throughout the event, one other thing we learned was to encourage people to stay on the webinar page during the event. You don't want them flipping to another tab to check something out, and then maybe they lose the tab or they exit out. Now they have to find the link, go back onto it. So we did encourage people to give through our text to give system through Click and Pledge. That way they're not leaving the screen, looking away from the content, and they're really staying engaged on that screen the whole time. And I think that's about all I have for me.
Wow,
I
terrific.
have a quick question if I can ask. Can you tell me for both presenters, first Ellen Abrams, was your event free or did you charge? It was free. Oh, sorry. There you go. And then talking about deliverables for sponsors, can you both tell me just a little bit of what you did differently for a virtual event, if there was anything that you really tweaked that was creative or out of the box for your sponsors?
Yeah, I'll say that I don't know this was totally out of the box, but we did talk more about reaching many more people, because like our homemaker art event went from just a Denver, Colorado to our entire Mountain Plains region, which is 6 states. So all of our supporters there. And then upcoming our Live in Hope Midwest event. Again, it's not just Omaha, it's across the whole region. So that was one thing that we talked a lot more about. We also offered still the opportunity to speak at the event, I think, or to have a video for the event, which we don't normally do, that we could place on our webpage or in any collateral material that we were doing. So giving them a much bigger speaking presence. This was for our presenting sponsor for our upcoming Live in Hope Midwest event.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I would say because our event was literally days away from happening, we had pretty much fulfilled all of the items in our sponsorship packages to the sponsors. And I think at that stage, they were very understanding that the event was going to be postponed. They were, like I said earlier, they were thrilled that we were able to move on and do something at least where we could at least have the event, virtual or not. I think what Ellen mentioned earlier is going to be important for everybody moving forward is coming up with ways with a virtual event now on how they can get exposure. And she's absolutely right. With a virtual event, especially because we made it free, we did expose the sponsors to a lot more people. And so I think they were very pleased with that. They were also pleased that they could invite more people because they are absolutely in the position where they want to improve the lives of their employees, whatever that definition is to them. And I think we're very grateful that a lot of the sponsors were like, this was already a part of our budget. We're already on to new budgets.
Yeah.
Keep the money. So,
Yeah.
and we could then turn, normally when they have a table, which we didn't fulfill, we could turn their contribution into 100% tax deduction as opposed to having to take out fair market value for tickets. So I think they were very pleased with that as well. And we did mention them on the screen during the event, much like we would do at a live event, in-person live event. We definitely promoted them more, made sure that we included them in more social media, et cetera. So they were pretty pleased. And what's really a little sad though is as we were reaching out to everybody who was attending the event, a lot of their corporate sponsors tables, the members, they're on furlough or they were on furlough. So
yeah, that's true. Great. Thank you so much for that.
And
Sarah, anything else from you?
Yeah, there was one more question. We talked a little bit about income for the event perhaps being down, but talk to the degree in which your expenses were down and how that might have affected your event's net profit.
I think that's a huge pro, actually. We had caterers lined up, the cost of a hotel venue in our budget, AV equipment, our flights for us, like I said, I'm in Denver, Colorado, so our philanthropy team, we had travel costs to get to both these events. One was going to be in Omaha, and then for our Southwest event, it would be the cost of a hotel and airfare. So the virtual platform is definitely more cost effective. And so you're really seeing those dollars go directly to, in our situation, our residents and our resident services programming. It really makes the budget a lot better.
Yeah, excellent.
For us, I agree. The expenses going down was a plus. For us to be able to get our deposit, our 100% back from the hotel and resort was a plus. We made and exceeded our goals pre-event. However, if we took what we wanted to raise day of, which we did not do, we normally probably get close to 100,000 the day of alone, and we were shy of that. Even with balancing out the lower expenses and what we raised for the virtual, we didn't make our budget because we were, but we're still very pleased, and we're very lucky that we saved a lot of money in expenses. So
it helps to offset it a little bit anyway. So thank you. Well, thank you again, Ellen and Megan. You provided some really good input as well as it relates to paying attention to your contractual agreements, looking at your virtual platforms, your the On24, for example, the analytics. That's important to know what you're going to get out of what you're paying for, and then also looking at you can do some elements of the live in your virtual, and figuring out what's the best way to do that, I think, becomes important. And I love that you mentioned the virtual tables. What a creative thought process and way to get those people that would be at the table invited to the event. And appreciate too that you mentioned the challenges that go with the money, of course, and being realistic. I think we need to be realistic on how much money we can raise and not expect the same level, and figuring out how we can best pull in, I guess, is important. And then looking at, making sure people know it's free and paying attention to making sure you're connected and having your backup plan. Because if you're not connected and you go 20 minutes and you're unable to start your event, you lose people. So I think that was a really great point you brought up. And I love the FAQ sheet as well. And so appreciate all that. And the other plus was the tax deduction for the sponsors and the funders. So thank you. Appreciate that very much. And now we're going to move to our next speaker, Katie Haar. Are you there? Yes, you are. And for Service Learning and Civic Engagement Program Supervisor for Chandler Gilbert Community College, and Mike Green as well, Director of Student Life and Leadership to the Chandler Gilbert Community College. Thank you both for being here today. And they're going to give us perspective from the students on how they support local nonprofits and what's needed for students and faculty as it relates to nonprofits as well. So Mike and Katie, are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for letting us be here. As Kathleen said, I'm Katie Haar. I am the Program Supervisor for Service Learning and Civic Engagement. I've been in this current role for about a year. So I like to tease that my first semester was a traditional semester in service learning, and this past semester has been very interesting as we've transferred to remote student engagement. So Mike, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mike Green. I'm the Director of Student Life and Leadership at Chandler Gilbert. I've been there about 17 years. Previous to the job as the Student Life Director, I was the director of a nonprofit in Chandler called the Boys and Girls Club. So I was involved in the nonprofit world there, and then came over to be a part of the student life at Chandler Gilbert. It's pretty interesting to this new challenge that we're talking about with COVID and the challenge of trying to do student engagement virtually. So I'll let Katie start working on the first question, and then I'll speak to some additional top points as we go along. Thanks.
Perfect, thanks Mike. So I just want to kind of give a little bit of history about our service learning program and then kind of what we're doing now. So the service learning program at Chandler Gilbert has been a long-standing program. I think our first service project was back in 1991. So we at Chandler Gilbert have been doing service within our communities for a very long time. We have many community partners that we love to call our co-educators because we really look to those nonprofit partners to help us educate our students when our students are there doing service. So what service learning kind of defined as, or what it really looks like, is our students are in the classroom and they're learning all of this great classroom knowledge, but then they are offered the opportunity to go out into the community and work with our service partners in service projects to tie this in the classroom knowledge to this out of the classroom experience and service. So that's just the kind of general definition of it. We do have multiple models of how our students go into their different service projects. Many faculty, they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I want to do a service class or service project with my class. And then I tease that I'm kind of like the matchmaker of service learning. So the faculty come in, they kind of talk about the project and what they need. And then I have this knowledge of the community partners that we have and the needs possibly of what the community is looking for. And then I try to match those ideas and projects with the faculty in the classrooms. So the different models vary, and I think that with this new COVID world, we're going to be going towards probably a more individualized student placement. So let me talk a little bit. So class projects are when an entire class will go to an organization and do service as a whole class. They come back, they reflect on that, and that's what we call a class project. We then have individual or small group projects, and this is where obviously an individual or a small group of 3 or 4 kind of researches topics and wants to look for agencies out in the community that are helping assist those types of populations that they're researching. So then that's kind of more of a student directed project. And then the last model is what we call our large scale service learning events. I'm excited that we usually have what we call empty bowls, where we work with Ascend to partner with our students in the ceramics area create bowls, and then we are able to, people come into this large, usually in-person event, buy the bowls, learn about Ascend, learn about food insecurity, and then all of that money is then goes to Ascend. So we now are looking at how can we do this virtually. So I'm working with the ceramics folks, I'm working with Ascend, trying to figure out a possible online auction opportunity. So really transitioning this, what it used to look like, into how can we make it work for us now, has been our biggest challenge, or I guess innovation of the last few months. So those are our 3 types of models of service learning. I know our question today is how students support the local nonprofits. Like I mentioned, this is typically a faculty-driven model. So the faculty will come to me and say they want to do service learning, and then I will connect them to agencies or people within the community for the students to do that type of service. I do have to say we are lucky right now to be building and creating a new software called GivePulse, which is a large job board type of software, but it's actually for service. So we can post service opportunities on this software, and students can go in, find the opportunity that they're interested in, register, sign up, get information, and then they're ready to go with that service opportunity. So I feel like in this new virtual world, really connecting to our community partners and finding out what those opportunities are, so that we can keep that system the most updated, since these students are no longer coming into our offices and we can't see them face to face and give them all of the awesome information that's happening out within our community. I really am hoping that GivePulse will help us connect more students to more agencies within the community.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and then the second question, Mike, I don't know if you want to go ahead and speak about that, but it's what needs students and faculty have that can be met by the nonprofits?
So that's a good question. I'll start, and I'm sure you'll add. And of course, it's really fascinating to be on this call, because in the audience, I just saw that Maria's there. Maria, of course, was one of the presidents of the college, and was one of the founding members of the service learning program at Chandler Gilbert Community College. And she, of course, is amazing and has done so much for the community of Chandler and Gilbert and the East Valley. So it's amazing to have her there and to be a part of this conversation. And so I'll say that, again, my background is that I'm from the nonprofit world, and so I know the nonprofit world, but I will say that it is all about the relationships that the college has with the nonprofits or community partners in general. There's lots of possibilities, and we don't necessarily know how they might will. There's other folks besides Katie and I doing the work with the communities. We have, of course, the president of the college, who's a part of the chamber and is involved with lots of programming. AVP, Associate Vice President Jenna Call, is also a community relations person at the college, and she's out doing a lot of communicating and working with partnerships and those relationships. And so I'll just say that it's all about those relationships, the relationships that the college has with the nonprofit community. We are more aware of the nonprofits and the ability for students to serve, but we're also aware of and needing so many of the students who need basic needs, whether it be, food, housing, transportation, childcare. Those are huge needs for students that we know to be successful, they have to get those basic needs met. And so we work a lot with nonprofits in the community to be able to help them be successful. There's some folks at the college. One of our staff is Yvette Strickling, and she works a lot with the agencies that can help with a lot of those basic needs to make sure that students are successful. So I'll just say relationships are key. There's all kinds of ways that we try to get those partnerships connected. Sometimes it might be an advisory board, sometimes there might be an event possibility, sometimes there might be opportunities for service, like Katie will talk about. But a lot of that is just in general, because we are a huge partner in the community of Gilbert, and we, of course, need those partnerships and that community to be a part of what we invite and help our students with. So I'll just start with that. It's all about the relationships that we have all over the community and the ability for the community to engage with the college and the college to engage with the community to see the success of the students. And it all comes down to the success and the opportunities to learn through the students.
Thank you, Mike and Katie, both for your input. It's valuable for us to be aware of what the colleges are doing. And I think a few points for me is, number one, it sounds like the students have a great opportunity to help with what I call disruptive innovation, to help recreate, well, here's how you used to do this, and here's our old models, and now let's look at our new models of being able to help you to meet what you need to graduate as it relates to community service. But, and I love that you have the new software program that you're looking at for Give Pulse. That's really terrific. And that, I think, is going to create an even greater platform to reach more and figure out how not only we can connect students to service, but I think you bring up such a terrific point that should be on everybody's mind, is that we have students with basic needs as well, social and basic needs. And it's the nonprofits, again, that step up to the plate to help increase their access to those needs. And so it's a two-way street, right? So that's really important to continue those types of collaborations and opportunities and build, as you say, Mike, those relationships that are so important. So I appreciate what you both have brought to the table today. And I'm actually on 3 boards, and we're all looking at virtual platforms for fundraising too. So I think everybody's in this space, whether you're, regardless of the type of nonprofit work you do, today's information really becomes so valuable. So thank you so much for your time. So now we're going to move into, Melanie, do you have the document to put up to share in regards to additional resources?
Katie, I'm going to ask you just a quick question. How does a nonprofit become a service or community partner? And then also, what is your timeline on Give Pulse?
Those are great questions. To become a partner since we're a part of a district, when you become a partner with Chandler Gilbert, you actually become a partner with all 10 of our sister schools. So there is a contract. It's called the Experiential Education Partnership Agreement, which is a partnership, obviously, between us as Maricopa and then us as, or you guys as the nonprofits. And I can help definitely navigate that situation for anybody that's interested. So I can put my email address in the chat box. And if you're interested in becoming a partner or finding out if you are already a partner, because sometimes you may have partnered with like Mesa Community College or Scottsdale, and we could still at Chandler Gilbert use that partnership agreement. So I can definitely check if you're interested to know if you already are one or how to make the process happen to become one. So I'll put my email in the chat. And then Give Pulse, I'm really, really hoping that I can have a speedy development and get Give Pulse working before fall semester starts. So that would be around August 24th, we would do a soft launch where like myself and my team would start posting opportunities, but I don't necessarily know that I would be putting large classrooms or things like that. So it would be more of a project management on my team's side to post opportunities and then guide students that are interested or looking for those opportunities into that system. So hopefully August before the fall semester begins.
So the challenge with that, of course, is that lots of the classes that the college will be offering in the fall semester will be online. So we're also trying to partner with those faculty and understand and figure out what is the kinds of opportunities that they're looking for, and can we find those partnerships in the community to make those work. And there's a lot of learning going on because there's a lot of these things that are so different as we try to figure out virtual opportunities and can we make those work for the students and for the faculty and for the partner. All of that has to come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Anything else, Sarah?
That's it on my end.
Okay, excellent. Melanie, can you pull up that document?
Yep, let me see if I can share my screen
We have a
really quick.
resource for everyone. That's just a document that will serve as a resource with some extra tips. There we go, nonprofit information fundraising. So in light of COVID, 19. These are just some websites you can go to and some additional resources if you're preparing to for a virtual event, that this provides you with some additional avenues of research as you prepare and give your team some ideas to be successful. So
and
that
we'll make sure this goes out with our, you know, kind of our follow-up from this meeting to actually have it as a document. One of the organizations I found, or one of the posts that I found, this kindful.com has a lot of suggestions, and although you can join them in some manner, they do post a lot of this for free. So for those who have some things coming up, this might be, you know, something to look at. So we'll make sure this gets out to everyone as a document, so you have access to the links, and hopefully you can, you know, look through some of their information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you again. I mean, the information that was provided today for both by the college as well as the nonprofits for fundraising is very helpful. I would say add a couple of points in regards to fundraising. And one is that as we develop our platforms for the social media, the actual event itself, that we want to keep in mind that one of the most important messaging that we want to send off is the whole reason for them to give, having that compelling case to give as it relates to the services we provide and the clients that are served through a particular nonprofit, that messaging becomes important before, during, and after. And then also it's, I think everyone today acknowledges it's an all hands on deck approach in regards to how do we get this done, get the planning, get the event completed, have your plan A, B, and C figured out. And that requires everybody to have some skin in the game, so to speak. So it's very important. So now we want to be able to open up to any other questions or comments from anyone else in the group as it relates to what you're doing in your organization or an event you have coming up, or any other lessons learned or comments.
So I know, I think Ascend, Trinity or Shauna, you guys did a brief activity or event. Could you give a little recap of maybe what you learned? I think yours is really kind of early in the process as well. Would one of you be willing to share a couple words?
Thank you. This is Trinity. I was just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
I
you,
was
Trinity.
and it sent. I was like, how do I do that? Because I didn't see a mute. So it was really in the beginning of the time. We do an annual walk each year, and I think what's different about our event and what I shared with Melanie is that more than the event of a walk, it's really a deadline for an annual campaign for people to give, as we have our board and staff receive donations from people. I mean, I think what was important was to be able to message that what we were still doing and how the increases we were seeing, what those looked like to be relevant for people. And like Ellen had mentioned, we did raise less money than we have in the past at the walk. So really just looking at that, but it was still something that was important to us, of not just canceling it completely, but doing what we could to raise some funding for it. Any specific thoughts, Melanie, that you want me to go over?
How did you end up communicating? So again, yours was really geared around, your event itself was supposed to be kind of for staff and board to kind of, this was their opportunity to do their fundraising. So really it was making sure you got information back out to them about, hey, this is still a really important time for us because you're seeing such an increased need. And so it sounded like it was mainly just making sure that they still understood that that was kind of something that, even though there were going to be some challenges, it was important to participate as much as they could this year. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and really looking at, as each of our board members and staff who participated were getting that message out to the people that they would ask for funding, whether it was historical people or new people that they were asking. You know, because it was more of a peer-to-peer messaging and ask, it was different than that traditional event. And what we started doing early on was we wanted to better understand the impacts to our services and the increases we were experiencing. And so while we used to do metrics on a monthly basis, we've switched to doing them on a weekly basis so that we can really see both the cumulative effect of the pandemic, but then week by week. And I think one example of where that's been important to us is with Meals on Wheels, that each week we're seeing a compounding effect, and then people get to stay on Meals on Wheels for a period of time. So as we're measuring the effects of the pandemic on our Meals on Wheels program, it's important that we're not just looking at the percentage increase throughout this whole time of the pandemic, but that we are looking at it week by week, because it's progressively getting larger, and then people are staying on the program for longer. So that will help us with our planning for how many volunteers we need to do those meals, et cetera. So that's bigger than the fundraising piece, but it was an important aspect for the communication to better understand where our numbers were on a weekly basis, so that we could accurately report that when people were doing that peer-to-peer fundraising.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much for that information. It's important to hear different aspects and different challenges and how we're working through them. And I appreciate that you brought up that the weekly data helps give you a better picture on where your trends are, especially during this time. That's important. Is there anyone else who would like to chime in and talk about what they're doing?
Kathleen, I'd like to suggest if anyone wants to send some of their upcoming events or ideas or lessons learned by email, maybe if they could send that by the end of the day today, then we could compile those responses and share it with the group.
Great idea. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. So thank you again, everybody, for your time today. We appreciate it. And as we close, I want to remind everyone to join us again for our next call. We're moving these calls now to monthly. And we also are going to plan on, as we move to the monthly format, we will be discussing at our next meeting collaboration and opportunities in the ongoing needs during the COVID crisis. And we're going to have a survey go out so we can tap in and understand where things are for you at this point in time in regards to your challenges and how you're working through things and needs that you have. And then we'll bring those up during these calls. So I want to thank you again, everyone. Your time and your participation is relevant as we share and resource for each other. Please be safe, and we will be talking to you very soon. And thank you again to each of our speakers today for taking your time to provide great presentations and important information. God bless you all, and be safe.
Thank you.